The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh, got my hustle on, no imitation of fad. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off-season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throb in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Podcast coming to you March 4th, 2025. We are coming to you live here on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, or X, as you guys call it these days. These kids call them these streets. We have a nice show today. We're gonna talk a lot of NBA talk with our weekly with Greg Hrinya in about a couple seconds. And then my little brother's come on the show, and we're gonna talk about New York Giants, maybe a little bit of Knicks because he's a big Knicks fan and all that's good stuff, and why I don't necessarily believe in them as a title contender just yet, and maybe the Yankees a little bit too also because he's a sad ass Yankee fan. Whatever. Anyway, we'll get to that. Get to Greg in a second too also. But before we get started, quick announcement here. You may have noticed if you follow me on YouTube, my YouTube page at Earnest Christian, you may have noticed on the last day I actually converted my YouTube page into the official podcast page officially. So the name, you've noticed the name may have changed in the last 24 hours. That is on purpose. As of yesterday, my YouTube page will be now officially the Earnestly Speaking podcast page. So all the content that I record, especially even the other shows, the other basketball retro shows, the wrestling retro shows I've been doing, all that on the same feed on there as well too. They have its own playlist and all that kind of stuff. Also on the podcast feed as well too. Those same shows I've been doing on a separate feed for the last couple of years, I've now merged them onto the main Earnestly Speaking podcast feed. We're basically going to make them more of a limited series thing as opposed to just having its own podcast feed. Because what's the point of you guys having 3 to 4 different podcast feeds subscribed to that if I'm not updating some of them? Like, for example, the Wrestling Retro Pod, we did the first one in about 9 months on Sunday. We did a Royal Rumble 1990 watch along, but that was the first show we done on that series since last May. So why bother having that available there? So just have it all in one stop shop. So you have all the content here that I do here. We got a lot of good stuff coming up. Of course, nothing's going to change for this show. The only thing different now is that Earnestly Speaking Podcast officially has its own YouTube page. So of course, if you look on the screen here, especially the youtube.com/@EarnSpeakPod. That is now the web address now for the YouTube page. It's youtube.com/@EarnSpeakPod. Pretty creative, right? Anyway. All right. Enough of me right now. We got to NBA, man. Bring my man, Mr. Greg Hrinya, doing a weekly, of course. Greg, we got a lot to talk about here because we got breaking news literally 5 minutes ago as we're coming out here to record. Kyrie Irving, torn ACL, out for the season. So the disaster in Dallas continues. Nico Harrison, you are on the clock, my friend. Oh, Lord. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a tough one because not only are they losing him for the rest of this season, but I mean, at 33 years old, tearing an ACL in March, I mean, he's probably going to miss most of next season too.
That's a calendar year injury.
Yeah, so I mean, especially at his age. So I mean, if you're optimistic and you're even giving him the benefit of the doubt, you're probably looking at like January 1st. So he's already going into next year, missing November and December at least. That's a tough one. And I mean, like, they were probably in the market for a lot of the players that you're going to hear about possibly changing teams in the offseason. They were probably in the mix because they might have looked to pair, and I know we'll get to it later, but like a Kevin Durant with a Kyrie and an Anthony Davis. Now you can't do that because why would Durant want to go to a team that, you don't know if you're getting a Kyrie back. So, I mean, you're taking them out of the mix for a lot of those types of veteran players who might move for not like a huge price, and they might enter the land of the tanking at this point. So because they do have their pick in 25, so they could, in theory, shut down Davis the rest of the season, shut down Clay, and now you're looking at them falling out of the play-in, and maybe they get lucky in the lottery. Who knows? But right now, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, by the way, we are live here, so you want to comment with me and Greg while we're discussing NBA topics here. You feel free to comment. We'll obviously highlight your comments on the board here if it's interesting enough. Yeah. So obviously, what a disastrous month for the team. You trade Luka, okay, for AD. Not that AD is a bad player. Obviously, we know how great AD is when healthy. But then AD plays his first game, plays only a half, dominates the first half, then gets hurt in the third quarter, out for however long that's going to be. Then there's Kyrie. Then yesterday, we heard like over the weekend that the ownership group is going to be raising prices on season ticket holders now by 8%. Okay, that's a disaster in itself. I'm sure fans are not happy about that after losing Luka. Then you're going to raise the price on top of that. What the hell are you doing? And then this happens, of course, to Kyrie Irving. The last vestige of someone that can draw crowds to a game, and he's gone now. Probably this is even like looking into research now. We know ACL injuries are typically a full year to come back from at least. So this could have been a bigger disaster for Nico Harrison. I mean, we've been saying right for the last month now, he's on borrowed time now. If he doesn't get a title in 2-3 years, he's done in that town. And probably, and I will honestly, I don't see any other NBA team touching him, based on that move for Luka, and then everything else has played out since then. So you can have a more disastrous month if Dallas, and here's the worst parts with Dallas. You probably get 80 back within the next probably a couple weeks. Okay, I think you and I both agree that they're both in the title contention when all things are equal and everybody's healthy. Well, that's done now because with no Kyrie, you ain't no chance.
Yeah, and the hard thing for them is that they were banking on, when you trade Luka, you're banking on, okay, we're diversifying our roster by adding a big man to Kyrie. So it's not just a gamble against Luka, a gamble on AD. It's also a gamble on Kyrie. And I mean, when you look at his history, he hasn't really been that available for a long time. I mean, he's going to finish this year playing 50 games. Last year, he played 58 games. So I mean, it's an 82-game season. So I mean, we're talking about, almost a half a year this year, a quarter of a year last year, 60 games in the year that he got traded from Brooklyn to Dallas. So that's still 22 games missed, 29 the year before, 54 the year before that. So, I mean, you have to go back to Boston for a season that he played over 60 games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking 6-7 years that he hasn't really been completely available. And, it's been a lot of injuries, obviously the vaccination stuff. But, I mean, like, they really bet heavy on an older player who had availability questions. So, I mean, like, and to be honest, like, I don't necessarily fault them for not wanting to pay Luka $350 million. I didn't like the return. And also, like, if you're not going to get the max return from the Lakers, you might as well just hold him to the summer and then have a bidding war for him, because now you're bringing in teams like your Utahs, your Brooklyns, the teams that have, 10 available.
Well, that's just it, Greg. That's just it. You just touched on that. That's actually the biggest problem with the whole Luka trade. It wasn't about trading. Obviously, it's not a good look in trading Luka. It was what they got back for him. Mikal Bridges got 4 first-round picks last summer. What are we doing?
Yeah. It was actually 5 first-round picks for Bridges.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you could have legitimately held him out for 8 or 9 picks, and you probably would have found a team like the Nets or, again, Utah, who would have said, hey, if we've got 13 or 14 firsts over the next 6 or 7 years, like, we'll give you 9 of them, So, I mean, like, and then they could have done whatever they wanted. They could have packaged some of those picks and moved them for other players. They could have done a whole number of things. But, I mean, to basically only get 1 first in addition to an injury-prone Anthony Davis.
Right.
And Max Christie's a good player, but I don't think that they anticipated him being like the headliner in that deal. I mean, he's a good player. He's a good 3-and-D player, but I mean, he's not a guy that you like upend your franchise for. So, I mean, to only get a first, they should have gotten the extra first. They should have gotten Connect. And then this offseason, they could use some of those things to move for other players.
And that's why the whole conspiracy theory thing has legs. You know that, right? Because the Lakers are the king of the hill when it comes to like NBA attention, in the league. And obviously there was a lot of, stock for the Lakers to be good and competitive every single year. And having Luka Doncic, yet another generation player for the Lakers now. I mean, we go 50 years now of this pattern. I'm not saying there is a conspiracy to the Lakers to always be good or be competitive, but God, I mean, Luka plus virtually not. Again, I don't want to keep insulting Anthony Davis saying it's nothing, but AD is is closer as a descending asset who can't stay healthy anyway. It's a weird look. You have to look at it as skeptical a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is bad luck too, because like you said, if they were completely healthy, you'd probably look at them as being a contender in the West. So I mean, like, if AD hadn't gotten hurt in the first game, if Kyrie hadn't blown out his knee, this was a team that you probably would have expected to be like a 6th seed come the end of the season. And now they're probably going to wind up like 11th or 12th in the West. So I mean, but look, that's why you don't gamble on older and injury-prone players. And the whole reason for them, or at least what they sold, was they were getting rid of Luka because they didn't believe in his conditioning. They didn't believe in giving him the money over the long period. He's, already started showing injury signs. He missed a good chunk of this season with injury when he was with Dallas. So to then trade him for another injury-prone player, I'm okay, I guess, if you want to sell him, just like you might see other players the same thing. You might see Memphis move on from John Morant. Like, if these teams don't want to pay a guy $300 million, who's for me to say, like, with the second apron being a real concern.
Right.
If that's how you want to build your team, I'm fine with it, but you should maximize what you're getting back in that deal. And
always.
I don't think that they did that. And that was what we said on trade deadline day.
So there is, and look, there might be a slight positive here for this with this situation. Let's say, okay, let's play timetable here. Let's assume that Kyrie Irving earliest realistic time him to come back is probably around trade deadline, All-Star break next year, right? That sounds more reasonable, right? 11 to 12 months out.
Yeah.
Let's say the Mavericks are competing pretty well. They're in range for playing playoffs, whatever you want to call it. AD is actually healthy next year. Of course, all these things are very hard to believe because given the situation. If Kyrie's okay next year by the playoff run next year, and that's really what you need him for, is for that run to win a championship. Maybe this could be a slight positive that if they're all healthy all at the same time next April, Kyrie's back, the knee's okay, AD's healthy, Clay is still playing decent. Maybe next year could be the time where you go for the run and you don't need the 82-game grind to do it. I don't know. Am I talking on a pocket here?
No, I mean, the way that I would sell it as a positive is if they, and I'm sure they're not going to shut down AD, but like if I were running the team, I would say, okay, Kyrie's out for the year. I'm just going to shut down AD.
You got to consider that, brother.
I'm going to shut down Clay. I'm going to go all in for the draft pick. And look, maybe they get lucky in the draft. So, I mean, like, let's say they wind up with, the 10th worst record and they jump up to 5 or 6 and they wind up taking Trey Johnson out of Texas. And now you've got a guy who's one of the top scorers in the country who plays on the wing. You pair him with Anthony Davis. And then if you get Kyrie to come back later on in the season, maybe you have something there. Maybe. But I mean, that's just me trying to look at it glass half full or 3/4 full. I mean, that's like trying to look for positives. I mean, it's definitely a rough day. But I mean, if I were them, I'd pivot into a tank right now and then just hope you can get lucky in the lottery and go from there.
Yeah, I would definitely have to consider keeping AD out, honestly. Right now, first off, number one, they're number 10 in the West. Okay. Now Phoenix is falling apart. They're 3.5 behind them. But even if you get a 10 seed, come on, man, you're not even beating Minnesota in that play-in game. I think Minnesota beat you.
But I don't see Phoenix shutting down their guys. Like, I don't see their owner shutting anybody down.
No, they got to max what they can at this point as much as they can. So maybe
so if Dallas shuts it down, the way Portland's playing, you could make the argument. You could make the argument for Portland and Phoenix both passing
Absolutely.
Dallas. So now you're not 10th in the West. Now you're 12th in the West, and then now you're in the mix. Not saying they're going to win the lottery and get Cooper Flag, but I mean, I would pivot quickly if I were them because there's still a quarter of the season left. It's not as if there's like a week left. They could still, if they go 4-18 or something like that, who knows? Maybe you're in position to
they can flip this that 10, 11, and 12 sequel flip within the next 2 weeks. So
totally, yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. The injury like this, that's how impactful that injury is.
Yeah.
There's been a big debate in the NBA in the last couple of weeks about who's the face of the league and this and that. I know LeBron has spoken about this, and a couple of guys have spoken about this. A couple of guys in the media spoke about this. I find it fascinating because, a lot of the narratives about this is all according to what the media portrays as such, or the fans, put their money into in terms of merch and all that stuff. That determines that attention, all that kind of stuff. But this is the first time, really, and I think I spoke about this even like last year or even before that. This is the first time probably since the 70s, really, that we don't really have a definitive face of the league. And that doesn't bother me, actually, to be honest with you. I mean, look, obviously in the 80s was Magic and Bird. They shared that kind of thing. Then Jordan, they became Jordan in the late 80s into the 90s and all the 90s. And then from there, went from that to Shaq and Kobe, and then LeBron. And it has been LeBron pretty much for 15 years. And you can make an argument that it's probably still LeBron, even in 2025, because he's certainly to this day has, in terms of attention and in terms of reaction on both ends of the spectrum, no matter how you love him or hate him, he probably has the most juice still when it comes to interest. Having said that, are the guys that are on the way up? You have the Jokic's. Jokic is, doesn't make any sense. Jokic. You have obviously Ant Edwards. SGA, Tatum, Giannis. You name it. Luka. Who is, in your opinion, the next quote unquote face? If you had to pick a face,
I'd say in the analytics community, it's probably Jokic. In terms of who it probably should be, it should be Ant Edwards. I've said for a couple of years now that just in terms of his skill set, like he's probably like the closest thing to a Jordan that the league would have in terms of he can play above the rim. He shoots a lot of threes, super athletic. I don't know that he's there yet. I know he made the comments the other day about not being the face of the league, but I mean, in terms of skill set, talent, age, he should be the next face of the league. But to your point, I think it's probably still LeBron, just because, I think that especially for people who aren't like the day-to-day fans of the league, like I don't know that casual fans think of Jokic. Like I know that he's a multi-time MVP award winner, could win another one this year, even though it'll probably go to Shea.
Definitely the case, though.
I think that the casual fan probably still thinks LeBron, LA, and look, LeBron's played great this year. He's going to be an All-NBA player when the season's said and done. I mean, this is probably, this is, probably the best year he's had in a number of years. So, and the Lakers have a great record. So, I mean, he's still, I would say, the face. Wemby is probably the guy who, Wemby, Jokic, Ant Edwards, those three are in the mix. I mean, obviously Wemby's got to come back next year.
I would have had Wemby prior to the injury, and I'm still gonna be very positive about this, and think he's gonna come back and relatively come back to the same guy. So my money's on Wemby because of everything around it. Like it's not like he necessarily wants it, but there's a thirst for the next guy. Jokic clearly does not want it. Giannis, as good as he is, though, I don't know if his playing style is conducive to people wanting to be that guy. Luka is kind of, he's a little bit polarizing in the community. Let's be real about that. Although him being in the Lakers may actually help his case now going forward. SGA is not marketable just yet on a larger scale. Tatum is too boring for folks. He's more of a Tim Duncan type. Anthony Edwards is the only other guy I would consider, but he has not done anything. I mean, his game obviously translates, but and I know location shouldn't matter because, again, we're in a time now in the NBA where you can play in OKC and be best player in basketball. You can play in this market, doesn't matter. Whereas back in the day, you had to play in the big market to really get the big market, to get the overall love nationally. I would say Ed Edwards is definitely a favorite, and I'd say Wemby with the other one for me.
Yeah, totally. And to your point, Luka being in LA now, that could
change things.
That could change things. I mean, I don't know about Giannis being over 30 at this point. I feel like that mantle would be left for a guy who's in his early to mid 20s.
Yeah, that window. I think that window for him passed after I think a year or two after the title.
Yeah. And Wemby, I think because of the unicorn nature of his game, being 7'4", shooting threes, I think that like if he can come back healthy, he's probably the guy. I mean, he was a big story before he got to the league. I think the fascination of a guy who's 7'4" and who can play an athletic game, not like a plodding 7'4", but like a skilled 7'4". I think that there's definitely an appetite there. Again, staying positive that he comes back healthy, ready to go, start next season. I think that he's definitely in the mix. I think Ann Edwards even said that it was probably Wemby. So, I mean, I wouldn't rule that out, but we just have to see how the summer plays out in terms of his health, his recovery, and all that.
There's also a thirst to it as well, where the face of the league, because the league is a United States league, that it should be a guy who's born here. You know, we can get into particulars about politics, all that stuff. But the thing is, though, and you might be on the same page with me as well, too, here, that we can argue the 3 best players in the league right now, probably 4 best players in the league right now, are all international players. I mean, any order you put it in, Jokic, SGA, Giannis, and Luka. Would you agree on the 4 best players in basketball right now currently? Where's the order?
That's why I've always said that Edwards would make sense as the face of the league, because if you're looking for an American-born player who's athletic and, you know, has that charisma, personality, I think people will get behind that. But you're right, the best 4 players right now in the league are all international.
Yeah, the only 2 guys you're considering that are American-born, and Edwards one, and then Jason Tatum. And then Jason Tatum, let's be real here, right? He's a great player, and I think he gets a lot of shit. As someone who's been critical, like I have on this podcast of Jason Tatum the last couple of years, I still defend the guy because he still gets the job done. You know, numbers are there, but he's not flashy. He's very dull. The Celtics are like Spurs in a lot of ways, and he's like Tim Duncan, which is, by the way, for the record, not a bad thing. In fact, I think it's a great thing. I love that. But the reality is, though, marketability goes far beyond that. And Edwards, I think, is the only person at this point, American-born, who has a chance to grab that mantle. And that's even assuming he wants it, which he has so far said he does not.
Yeah, and I totally agree on Tatum. Like, I feel like the Celtics are a machine in the sense that they've got so many good players that I think that he, without being a guy who's very outspoken, again, Tim Duncan is a great comparison. He doesn't seem like the guy who would stand out. Maybe if he were on another team where they didn't have any good players, he would stand out. But I mean, he doesn't stand out on the Celtics, where Jaylen Brown's an all-star. Derek White's a great player. Porzingis is a great player. You know, they've already won a championship playing like a team, like the Spurs. Right. You know, it wasn't because he just went nuclear in the finals. I mean, Jaylen Brown won finals MVP. So, I mean, there's so much talent around him that I don't, and he's so soft-spoken that I really don't see him, despite having a great game and a game that would probably translate to the face of the league. His personality and the fact that he's got so much talent around him doesn't really scream face of the league to me. So, I mean, even though, to your point, he is a great American-born player, I don't see that that designation for him
at this point. Yeah. Speaking of the Celtics, they had a huge game last Friday against the Cavs, and there's been a couple of days since then. In a possible, I think most people agree at this point that is the likely Eastern Conference Finals preview. Cavs win that game. What a game! First off, I'll tell you a quick story. So I was out with my family at the fair. There's a little fair that happened in the city over near us, and left about 6:30 to go. And my dad sends me a text. He's like, "What's going on here? What's on the Cavs?" I go, "What do you mean it was on the Cavs?" And then I checked the score, and they're down 25-3. I'm like, "Oh, great!" So here we go, the Cavs underwhelming again. But this when you start believing in them. So I just forgot about the game, and then obviously we had a good time at the fair. Blah blah blah. About an hour and a half later, I go in the car, and technology's awesome these days. You can just turn on the ESPN app because the game's on ESPN and see what the game's at. And all of a sudden, the Cavs are up by 4. I'm like, what the hell happened in the last hour and a half? So they end up winning the game. Obviously, Boston didn't have Porzingis in that game. Obviously, that's a big deal. But, I'm still skeptical of the Cavs. I'm still skeptical. They've had a phenomenal year. I think they have the best record in basketball right now currently, if I'm not mistaken. But the more I watch them, and, and again, they beat the Celtics without Porzingis. But are you there on the Cavs? Are they a real finals team? Like, do you see this team going to the finals and even winning it? This team?
I mean, they're in the mix of like the top 4 teams in the entire NBA. So, I mean, I think by definition, you'd have to say they're in the mix. If the series started now between Boston and Cleveland, I would bet on Boston. I mean, they were missing Drew Holiday too. So, I mean, they're missing Drew Holiday, they're missing Porzingis.
There you go. So there's two guys.
And they won a title last year. So I think that game is vastly more important to Cleveland if they're trying to prove something. I don't think the Celtics really have much to prove. So missing 2 starters, you jump out to that huge 25-3 lead. It's easy to get complacent, take your foot off the gas, and they couldn't get it revved up again. I mean, I think Cleveland is an amazing team. I think what Kenny Atkinson's done has been phenomenal. I love the way that they rounded out their roster with DeAndre Hunter. The way they closed that game with Hunter playing the 4, Mobley playing the 5. So, I mean, they have versatility in terms of the matchups they can play. I mean, they can do anything that they need to do. It's just a matter of, is Boston going to be too much for them? And I mean, if I had to bet on it, I would still bet on Boston. But that's not to say that, 3 months from now that they couldn't be in a long series where, or, a guy where Tatum sprains his ankle or something like that. You just never know. I mean, they're in the mix with OKC, with Boston, with, I guess, Denver. So, I mean, like, they're in the top 4 teams. I think by definition, they're a contender. And I mean, to what you mentioned on your intro, like, you weren't there with the Knicks yet. Like, I think that they're beyond Knicks level. Well,
that's the thing. If you had asked me this 3 weeks ago, I would have still taken New York in a 7-game series. If you asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have taken Boston 7-game series. I'm still there with Boston for the record. Mm-hmm. If you asked me 3 weeks ago, I might still take Milwaukee over them in the 7-game series because I have to see it. Because this team did this 2 years ago, not to this level, but and then they were out in the first round in 5 games against New York, and that stench has not gone off of me just yet. So, to me, I know what the record is, but I know matchups. And to me, even with New York struggles, and we'll get to them in a second. Actually, I'll get to them with my brother, actually, because I'm going to have a ball on that one. I still think New York, all things equal, will find a way to beat Cleveland in the 7-game series. But the more I watch Cleveland, game to game, I'm like, maybe I'm a little harsh on them. Maybe I should start believing this team. But you also got to bake in the fact that I forgot that not just Porzingis missed a game on Friday, Drew Holiday. So that game kind of, in my opinion, is almost like, okay, who cares? Beat him full strength. So that game really, honestly, as great a win as it was, and them coming back, all that, it really shouldn't move the needle about the bigger conversation about who's better in the East. Because I'm still taking Boston between the two teams right now.
Yeah, I don't think any individual game in February and early March is going to sway what I would say will happen in April or May or June in a 7-game series. I mean, if we're comparing Cleveland to New York, I would still take Cleveland over New York. I think that I don't know that Karl Anthony Towns is going to be a good center defender in a playoff matchup. I think that they're going to have a lot of trouble defending with him at the 5.
Right.
I think ideally you'd have Mitchell Robinson at the 5 and Cat at the 4 because Cat becomes a little easier to hide in that sense. But I don't know that Mitchell Robinson will be at a level come that time where he can play 30 minutes a game, being that he's been injured for the better part of his career. So, I mean, you might only be getting 15 or 20 minutes out of Mitchell Robinson. And look, maybe in crunch time, that's all you need. But I think that Cat is going to be such a liability in the pick and roll in the playoffs. I think that's a distinct advantage that Cleveland or any other really good team would have against the Knicks. I mean, that's not for a first round series. I'm talking about if the Knicks finish 3rd and play Boston in the 2nd round, Boston's a better team. If they somehow wound up facing, let's say they fell to 4th and face Cleveland in the 2nd round, I think that that's a matchup that would, with Mobley, with Allen, I think that would actually give Towns a lot of trouble. So,
right.
And I'm not basing this off of the fact that the Knicks are 0-7 against all these teams in the regular season. I mean, everybody wants to scream about, they haven't played OKC well, they haven't played Boston well, they haven't played Cleveland well.
But they gotten blown out, those teams also too as well. And not only that, some of those losses are concerning because you look in the details. For example, the Knicks, the loss to the Lakers without AD the night that Luke got traded. AD didn't play that game and they got blown out at home. The loss against Boston, I'm not mistaken, Porzingis missed that game. Jaylen Brown missed that game too also, I believe. 1 and 2 or both.
Yeah,
I mean, that's concerning to me. And he got blown out. Not just like they lost. He got blown out at home. It's bad.
But to be fair to the Knicks, like they've also swept Denver, they swept Memphis. So I mean, it's not as if they haven't beaten any good teams. I mean, the wins against Denver are legitimately good wins. It's just that my concern, and it's not like the individual games. I mean, the blowout nature of the game is obviously concerning. It's just that I think that when push comes to shove in a slow down 7-game series, like you're going to get Brunson matched up into unfavorable matchups. You're going to have like him switched on to Jaylen Brown. That's not a good switch. Yeah. You're going to have Towns switched on to any number of players. Not a good switch. So, I mean, like, I feel like individual defensive matchups that those teams are going to hunt, they're going to be able to get them. And it sort of negates maybe the fact that Bridges has had really good moments on defense, that Anunoby is a really good defender. Like they have good individual defenders, but I feel like a well-coached team will be able to isolate matchups on the floor and sort of take advantage of that. So that's why I'm probably a little more down on the Knicks than maybe other people would be looking at their record and saying they're probably locked in at the 3. I think that in a series against an amazing team, that I think they're going to struggle on defense.
Right. We had another season-ending injury last week. Not surprised here, of course. Joel Embiid officially. We were on the pod last week. We were hearing about them reevaluating him. Well, we found out that he's been reevaluated and he's gonna be out for the year. What's next for the Sixers, man? They are. I mean, you talking about a team that's really fucked in terms of like their future. Like I already stated on record that right now you can make an argument right now that 2 of the 3 worst contracts in the NBA are on the same team. That is. Joel Embiid, obviously, if things continue to go the way they are, and Paul George, if things continue to go the way they are. Joel Embiid, obviously, we know when he's healthy, obviously he's a top 10 guy. He played 2 or 3 games when he got from his last injury, and he dominated. Triple-double, first game back. So we're not saying he's not good. It's just that when he's available, he's good. But that's for him at this point. And of course, Paul George, he's been disappointed this year, and he's only in year 1 of his contract. It's a 4-year deal. Year 4 is player option. The way he's going now, he's going to opt in that contract. I mean, Joel Embiid right now, as I'm sitting here, if I'm not mistaken, he's owed $59 million next year, $64 the year after, and then $69 million on the player opt in 28-29. Which, by the way, at this rate, at 34 years old, at that point, he will opt in that contract because, duh. He's not getting back that money. Philadelphia's fucked, dude.
Yeah, they're in much the same situation as Dallas, where like they are going to be at the mercy of ping pong balls on May 12th because their pick is top 6 protected. If they wind up keeping that pick, you could at least salvage something out of this season, and then you could talk yourself into, okay, well, if Embiid goes to Germany and has the same treatment that Kobe had, and if they could just get him on the floor for 50 games next year and get him into the playoffs, and if they could alleviate that pressure somehow with a top 6 pick, with Paul George maybe being a little more motivated, because the issue with Paul George, I don't necessarily know that he's washed. I just think that he hasn't his give a damn factor has not been very high, especially on defense. So that would be my criticism of him. Like, this has not been a good showing from him as a professional. I don't know that it's a lack of skill. I just see him getting blown by constantly on defense. And it's like, there's a guy who's like checked out because of the way the season's gone. And given that he's in the first year of a 4-year, $200+ million contract, like that's not a good look.
No,
but I mean, look, if they don't keep their pick and you have Embiid in limbo, basically with his knee, not knowing what you're going to get, and you come back next year with just Maxey and Paul George, like that's going to be tough. I have given them credit because they've drafted well. So I mean, like Jared McCain is a good player that they can feel good about. They found Justin Edwards; he's a good role player they can feel good about. But I mean, ultimately, when you have so much money tied up in 2 guys, you can't afford for both of them to be zeros. And if Embiid is a zero, Paul George might be checked out too. So, I mean, like, if you're getting 0 from the combination of $110 million or $120 million worth of contract, that's a hard sell. So, I mean, a lot of, I think what's going to happen with them is going to come down to the lottery. And that's the only way they can really salvage this thing. Because look, if they wind up getting lucky and getting Ace Bailey, Trey Johnson. I'm not even asking them to win the lottery. I'm just saying if they can get a player that they can add to the mix, makes them younger, more athletic, and then you can say, okay, we've got McCain, we've got Maxey, we've got Trey Johnson. If we can somehow get anything out of Paul George, if Embiid can come back in some shape or form, you can sell that at least. But I mean, it's like with Dallas, it's a rough sell right now.
I'm with you there. There's nothing you said there. Greg, explain the Orlando Magic's 2-month collapse. Dude, this team was surging out the gate. First, I think 2-3 weeks, Paulo Banchero was phenomenal. We were talking about this guy. Oh my God, this could be a next top 10 guy. Who knows? He gets hurt. They struggle a little bit, and then they kind of kept things relatively decent. And then they lose both him and Von Wagner, and then they still win games in spite of not having those stars. They get back, and then they just fall apart. What the hell happened?
Yeah, it's fascinating because they started out the season 20-15, and a lot of those 20 wins were without, as you mentioned, Wagner and Banchero. So I mean, it's a fascinating character arc for Jamal Mosley as the head coach. I've never seen a coach go so quickly from possible coach of the year candidate to should be fired within the same season.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, you really don't see that very often. That is a rare feat to accomplish. So I mean, look, they've missed Jalen Suggs, and again, he's not some great shooter, but not having a controlling point guard who can settle everything down, and not that he was even the typical point guard, but he was a really good defender. And they played a lot better when he was on the floor, even when Wagner and Banchero weren't playing. I think the issue for both those guys is that neither one of them is a knockdown shooter.
Right.
So, I mean, Banchero can score. I mean, if you look at his box scores, I mean, he had a game last week where he scored 41 points. So it's not as if he can't.
He's still phenomenal. He's still a great player.
Yeah, but it's not usually an efficient box score. I mean, there have been some 5 for 22 games this year, in that ballpark. That's tough. And Wagner, is not a 40% 3-point shooter. He's not a great 3-point shooter. Banchero is not your typical 3-point shooter. And they didn't really go out and add that kind of shooting at the deadline. So you don't really see a lot of offense on their team. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I think, was supposed to be that steadying force. But as I just mentioned with Paul George, there's a guy who looks like he got a good contract, and he's satisfied with getting a good contract. And
you were critical too of the Magic at trend deadline. Why did they make any moves? You were very critical of them. On the show.
And you see why, because even if you're not going to go out and get a point guard, you could even make the argument okay, we're fine with Cole Anthony running point or whomever, but you have to go out and add some outside shooting. The way their spacing just doesn't work because they don't have any really great 3-point shooters.
Right.
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is probably their best 3-point shooter, but he's not what you would consider a knockdown 3-point shooter. Considering they've got expiring salaries, Gary Harris and other guys that they could move, and all their picks and some other picks from other deals, for them to just stand by and basically let the season die on the past, to use a restaurant term. I just don't know why they wouldn't try and supplement the roster with guys who could improve spacing around them. And look, they could be a team that if they're in that 9-10 game or the 7-8 game, they might look at it and say, hey, let's just get in the lottery at this point and get ping pong balls. And so it's
no chance in the lottery though. They have a 7-game lead over Brooklyn at 11, so there's no chance of getting the lottery.
No.
Wait, 9-10 loses. You get 9. Never mind.
So I mean, let's say that they wind up as the 8th seed and play Miami in the play, and they lose to Miami. Miami gets a 7 seed. They play the 8, the 9-10 game,
right?
And they lose to Chicago, Philly, Brooklyn, Toronto, whichever team winds up.
It's probably Chicago at this point.
It depends. I mean, it's all going to depend on who's playing their guys. I mean, because teams can very easily shut players down and lean into a tank. I mean, Toronto, if they brought Brandon Ingram back, looking at their schedule, they've got the weakest schedule in the league by far. I mean, the winning percentage of the teams that they play.
They're only 5 back right now too, also. So it's got 30-something games left. Anything can happen.
It's the winning percentage of the teams that Toronto faces the rest of the year is 36%. And
wow.
Yeah. So I mean, the toughest game that they might play the rest of the season is going to be tonight against Orlando. So I mean, they really don't play a tough game the rest of the way. It's a really soft schedule. You know, they have games against the Jazz. They have a bunch against the Wizards. They play the Bulls. They play Philly a bunch of times. So, I mean, like, you could make the argument if they wanted to, but like, I don't know that they're going to bring Brandon Ingram back. They might say, look, we signed him to that extension to have him next year. They could start sitting guys too. Who knows? So, I mean, like, it's all going to be what teams lean into. It's a fascinating thing this year with the lottery as deep as it's expected to be. You have like 11 or 12 teams that aren't like actively pursuing contention. So it might just be who's left standing and who wants to be standing at the end of it.
Exactly. Two more things to get you out of here. Look, I want to spend every week talking about the Lakers on the show because it's to me, it'd be a snooze fest. But we got to bring this up a little bit. They are right now, as we sit here on this podcast, March 4th, 2025, they are right now the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. JJ Redick has got to get Coach of the Year consideration what he's done here, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you're throwing Kenny Atkinson out, I would say that what JJ Redick has done, I think just because Cleveland has had the best record in the league, taking into account where they were last year, he's probably locked that up. But if you look at other coaches, you're probably looking at JB Bickerstaff and JJ Redick as the two guys in whatever order you want them as guys.
I would have said Ime for a while too, but maybe Houston's faded a little bit in the last couple weeks, but still good.
I would say that JB Bickerstaff taking a team that was atrocious last year, having them in like not even in a play-in spot, but like they're going to be in the playoffs. They're not going to have to go through the play-in. And then the Lakers, if they finish second or third, like that's a pretty remarkable finish.
Right.
The only thing that would concern me is just in a 7-game series, like, can they get by with Jackson Hayes for 25 minutes a night and then cobbling together like a small lineup built around Jared Vanderbilt, Dorian Finney-Smith, like Rui Hachimura? Can they do that for long stretches of time? I'm not saying that they couldn't do it on a Saturday night against Denver for 1 game. Can they do it for 7 games? I don't know. And the fact that they tried to trade for Mark Williams and they were prepared to pay a pretty heavy price to get him shows that like they clearly think that they need center help. So it's like if they think that they need it, I think that they need it too. So I mean, like, I don't know that they're going to be able to survive in terms of like winning a championship without a center. Can they get to the Western Conference Finals? Sure.
I was going to ask you that. Is there a scenario this year where Luka and LeBron are hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy in June? Right now, I would
be shocked if they won a title. I wouldn't be shocked if they were in the Western Conference Finals. But I would be shocked if you told me that they beat Oklahoma City in a 7-game series. That wouldn't shock me either, because again, my criticism of OKC is I don't know if they have enough outside shooting. And their second best player, Jalen Williams, I know he just had a huge night the other night, 41 points.
Yeah,
I don't know that outside of Shea they have like traditional shooters that are spacing the floor that you're going to rely on in, winning 4 games out of 7. I'm not saying that Aaron Wiggins can't get hot in a game, that Isaiah Joe can't get hot in a game. But like Chet, Jalen Williams, they are not your like stereotypical like knockdown shooters.
True.
So can a team like the Lakers, who's played really well defensively, especially since they made this deal, not saying that Luka's been an amazing defender, but just as a team, they've bought into the concept of defense. Can they shut OKC down? Like maybe, not saying that they'll stop Shea, not saying that they'll hold him to 15 points a game, but can they hold the other guys? And, maybe Shea still scores 38 points, but they find ways to win like 102 to 98 games. Like, is that possible? Like, sure. I don't see why not, based on the way that both teams have played.
All right. Well, last thing is out of here. I'll bring my brother on in a second. The Phoenix Sun experiment is pretty much over. I mean, they haven't announced anything, but all the tea leaves and everything's being said by the comments have been made in the last week or so that they're pretty much punting on this thing. This has been a disaster. And they're not even in the playing situation right now. In fact, they're 3 back or 2 back of the 10 seed in the Western Conference. Kevin Durant looks like he's checked out. I mean, it's clear that Kevin Durant is going to be traded this summer. I tweeted yesterday, and I think I think you agreed with me on this one, where I don't, not only will Kevin Durant get traded, I don't think it'll be hard to trade him either. Not because he's not good, because I think the Suns are so desperate now to not become that second apron team again. They got to shed salary. That's a big salary movement with Durant. That I think they'll take pretty much anything. It won't require a lot to move Kevin Durant. I think the question is going to be now, where does KD prefer to go? And I think there's a lot of interesting situations out there that teams I think he would fit well. And for the record, I think KD, no matter where he goes, he fits well. That's one of the most underrated things about Kevin Durant. Doesn't matter where he plays, he wants the ball. That's all he cares about, playing basketball. So I think a fit issue anywhere won't be a problem. There's a lot of places that I think he can go to. Let me ask you first. I guess make a prediction if you want to. What team do you see Kevin Durant getting traded to in July?
If I had to, I mean, I could see 5 or 6 teams. If I had to pick one, and you're holding me to that, I would say Miami. And not because you're a Miami fan, just because I feel like if you put him next to Bam, if you put him next to Hero, you could make an argument that in the East, they could still be something. And to your point, I don't think it's going to take a lot to move him either. Because he's in the last year of his deal. Like when he was getting traded from Brooklyn, he had just signed an extension. So he still had 4 years that he had to go through to get to the end of that deal.
He's played 2.5. He's played 2.5 already in Phoenix, right? Wow, that's quick.
Yeah. So I mean, he demanded a trade the first year of that deal. And so next year, let's say he stayed in Phoenix, his deal would be expiring. So it's a lot easier to move an expiring contract, or from the team standpoint, you're getting a lot less for expiring because he could just say, I'm not re-signing with you. And so you're going to lose him for nothing after next year anyway. So I don't think you're getting some sort of haul where you're getting 3 and 4 first-round picks.
Yeah, and I don't think they want. I don't think they want that in Phoenix. I think they want to shed salary. I think they'll take expiring contracts and assets, small assets. So Miami has a couple of those on their team also, rookie deals and all that stuff. They can definitely make that work.
Or does like a Wiggins and a Duncan Robinson work where I don't know what Robinson's contract is. I don't know if he's
one more year left. He has 20,
So I mean, that would be an enticing salary for not just
you got Terry Rozier expiring next year, Duncan Robinson expiring next year. That's 2 fairly decent sized contracts. Numbers might make it work. For maybe throw in a pick in there, maybe just to make it sweet. Now, if I was thinking about contenders though, Dallas was one before Kyrie got hurt. I would have said Dallas been a contender.
Yeah.
How about Memphis?
Yeah, they were on my list too. I mean, it was.
What is your list then? Give me a list.
I mean, so for me, it was Miami number 1, just because I feel like they could make that deal work. I think Pat Riley for a long time has been looking to add a star caliber player. Miami was on KD's list.
Always Will Hunting.
The first time that he was about to, be traded, when he made his trade demand a couple years ago from Brooklyn, it was Phoenix and Miami. Those are the 2 teams on his list. So I think there would be an appetite for him to play there. Again, an hour ago, I would have said Dallas. That would have made sense, but obviously, that doesn't make sense right now. Memphis was on my list. My dark horse in this whole thing would probably be the Knicks. I could see if that thing goes the way, let's say the Knicks get bounced in the first round by Detroit. Could they be looking at something?
Oh my God! Yeah.
Could they be looking at something more drastic than just moving around the fringes? Would they look at and again, it depends on how they go out. If they go out because Towns is not good defensively, is there a bigger trade to be had there where you're talking a 3-team deal where Towns goes out in the trade and he's going to wind up being a second team all NBA player. He was an all-star
and rightly starter. So I could argue I could argue first team possibly.
Yeah, you can make that argument, but I mean, if a team looks at him and says he's a great offensive player, he's he's going to average 27 28 points a game, dominates on the boards and all that, but if they don't feel like defensively they can win with him, can they then get a haul back for him and then not only get Durant, but maybe get a couple other pieces to where the biggest problem with the Knicks is they just don't have depth. So I mean, if they could fill out their roster a little more by moving one guy and getting 3, maybe in a multi-team deal, or getting some picks back, the picks that they traded for Bridges, could they recoup some picks elsewhere and then move in that direction? Could they get Durant in a pick or 2 and, another salary in a multi-team trade? That's just me saying if things blow up, that could be a dark horse type of deal. But I mean, I don't know that. I'm just saying that is a scenario.
We're prognosticating right now at this point, which is fun. We love doing that here. So
that would be the long shot, a team looking to make more of a drastic reset, and the Knicks' real only movable piece would be Towns, and coming off the season that he's come off of. Again, we praised Anthony Davis for he was an all NBA player. That's why Dallas wanted him. Towns is going to be an all NBA player too. So he would have a tremendous amount of value to somebody. It would just, again, that would just be the movable piece for the Knicks. So, I mean, like, I'm just looking at it from that standpoint. So, but that would be like the long shot. And Memphis has made a lot of sense just because, like, they need shooting. They need, like, a guy.
I think Memphis of all the contenders probably makes more sense. And they have fairly decent contracts to move. They can make that work because they're not totally, like, stuck with bad deals either.
And they have all their picks. So, I mean, like, they could move, 1 pick, 2 picks in the deal if they're not giving up, like, actual salary. Or maybe Phoenix looks at it and is like, Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams, like, if you give us a salary and you're giving us some, like, young players that we could put on our roster.
And that's all they want, dude. They just want expiring deals, start clean.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can get young players that aren't making that much money, some expirings, maybe a pick, I feel like there's a market there for that in Memphis. And they would be like, they're already a, fringe contender.
Right.
That Durant has to go to a place where they're already competing for a championship and he's there to put them over the top. Like, you're not putting him on a team where you have to overhaul your entire roster. Like, you're not building a roster from scratch. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe Miami doesn't make the perfect amount of sense in that regard, but I think that, like, Pat Riley at some point is probably going to be like, we need to go for it. Like, what is the point of the same complaints that I had in previous podcasts with you on Spoelstra? It's like, we can't keep being a play-in team every year. Like, we need to make a move that goes for it. This would be a move that goes for it. You still have Bam. You still have Tyler Hero, who are young. So, I mean, it's not like you're putting him on an old roster.
Right. All right. You can follow Greg on Twitter or X, what the hell you want to call it, at Gee Hrinya. That's GHRY. Wait, INYA. Right. Damn. Second week in a row. I couldn't get it right on the first Friday.
NBA too. It's
NBA, of course. Yeah. You'll be with us weekly here on the podcast. Greg, thank you so much as always, man. We'll talk to you next week, man.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Take it easy.
Have a good one.
All right. That is Greg Hrinya here on the pod here. And now let's go ahead and bring in a very special guest on the pod. And that is, of course, my little brother, Brother Maurice here with us.
What's up?
Man. What up? We're gonna talk a little New York Giants. Just finished talking to Greg about some NBA stuff and a little bit of Knicks here and there. And we both are kind of we're both kind of on the Knicks real quick. Be some good teams, man. He did say though, y'all beat Denver twice this year, so and Memphis twice. So yeah, you got some wins in the back pocket, man. But I gotta see some wins against Boston and Cleveland. And look, here's the deal. I think honestly, all things equal, I still think even with Cleveland's great year, I might still take the Knicks in 7 over the Cavs right now.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Cleveland, but I don't think we match up well with Boston.
No, I think Boston just when healthy did just too much. So
yeah, we're not as good as we were defensively. We got better on offense, but we're not as good defensively. So it's like it's kind of like a wash with this whole trade thing. I do think that we make it probably. I think we could make the Eastern Conference Finals, but I don't see us beating Boston.
Yeah, and I think Tom Thibodeau is. You already know how I feel about Tom Thibodeau. I think he's probably the reason you don't get further than that because, again, his stubbornness to play short rotations in fucking December and January is totally stupid. Totally stupid. But that's just
runs guys into the ground pretty much.
Yeah. But here's about New York Giants quick. So I call this time of the year a lying season because you hear all this stuff. I just got a report today on Beach Report that the people believe the Giants are saying Shedeur Sanders is smokescreen because they want to trade up to get Cam Ward and all this stuff. We have reports about them probably going after Matthew Stafford. Of course, he stays in LA, and now they may go after Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson's in the pocket probably. And so all this again, this is lying season. Everybody's throwing things up. Let's throw things out. What direction do you want them to go in the next month or so? With I guess a quarterback first and foremost. What should we do?
Obviously, draft one if you can. If you have to move up to second, like let's say you think Cleveland's taking a quarterback, maybe they might want to trade out of that spot. So if you have to, I wouldn't be opposed to trading picks to move up one slot.
But it does sound like, though, based on a lot of the mocks I've been reading, and look, the mocks are not the be all end all, but they give you an idea what people are thinking, betting up markets to also have a play in this too. Also, it does sound like one, if not both, quarterbacks that are top quarterbacks, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, are going to fall at least to 3. It may require the team up there, but again, it's lying season, so teams are going to say things. I think Tennessee will still take Cam Ward because they need.
Yeah, I don't
sucks.
see them not taking. I don't see them not taking a quarterback. That would make no sense. You got the number 1 overall pick. Why wouldn't you take a quarterback? You got two of them sitting right there.
Right, but I do think, because we were talking about this, you and I were talking about this a couple days ago. Because obviously Stafford is gone. That's not a conversation. Like, look, not that I'm against Stafford. I would have taken it, whatever. But he doesn't fit the timeline of the team's at now. I'm looking at the broader picture. I don't want to get good for 1 or 2 years. I want to get good for the next 5 to 10. And Matthew Stafford's that fit the timeline. But I do understand the logic in drafting a veteran, a Russell Wilson. Pick up a veteran in Russell Wilson or a veteran in Aaron Rodgers. In the meantime, in the event that, let's say, Cleveland does take a quarterback, then what? At 3, you're taking Jackson Dart? I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? So I do see the value in taking a guy that at least knows something, that can hold a fort down for a year, this and that, no big deal. But the priority should be, if at all possible, if Shedeur and or Cam are sitting there at number 3, they got to take a quarterback. And
I don't mind them taking or signing a veteran quarterback to be a mentor, but I don't want to sign some mediocre guy just for us to win an extra 2 games, and then we're out of the top 5 draft picks and we don't get another quarterback next year. That just is stupid to me. Because we've been like that the past few years. We've been out of the top, 1 or 2 picks and not able to get the quarterback that we want. Yeah. And then we end up going somewhere else with it. And I think, nobody wants to tank. Nobody wants to be a terrible team. But let's say they sign Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers still has a little something in the tank, and we win 8 games. What does that do for us?
It does nothing for us. It does nothing for us.
Yeah,
that's why I think if the opportunity to draft or quarterback is there, you still do it. You could do both. Still get the Aaron Rodgers and or Russell Wilson, but prioritize getting a quarterback, because
if I had to choose, I'd rather to have a mentor. I'd rather have Russell Wilson. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
1,000%.
But we would agree Rodgers is probably better right now than Russ is, right?
Yeah. I don't think Rodgers is terrible, but you could tell he's lost a little something.
Well, he's not mobile. He's not mobile. Let's start there.
And he can't hit every throw like he used to either.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by the Rodgers thing, though. All I know is this: do not sign Sam Darnold, please. Do not do that. It's a report this morning too, also, that the Vikings,
I saw it. Yeah,
he's not going to tag him, but they want to keep him still.
It's weird.
I know the Giants. There's a report the Giants that they are supposedly like looking into that to see what's there. And dude, Sam Darnold, I do not want to have that guy at $40 million a year or $30 million a year at 3 to 4 years a pop. Don't, because that you're basically going again in a guy that, I'm not saying he's not good, but at the same time that there's a lot of risk there.
Yeah,
that can set us back another couple of years.
I'm not willing to pay him that type of money. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
for him. And then our team isn't as good as Minnesota's all around. So, like, you're gonna get a lesser version of what you saw last year.
Yeah, I agree. What are the other needs of the team, though? Obviously, quarterback's the biggest one, but
they still need to fix the O-line. There's a couple. They need to tweak something there. We have the left tackle, obviously. We have the center. Maybe get a guard. I'm not sure about right tackle either. And then on defense, we still need a corner, another safety. We got what's his face? We got that safety last year. He's been actually pretty good. Newbin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we need another safety. We need a corner. The line is fine, I think. And then we need some linebackers.
Right. Do you? Because I know Thibodeau has a fifth-year option, I think. And I think I don't think they answered that question. But do you extend Thibodeau? Is he good enough to extend more years?
I'm not sure. Like the one good year he had, it was just statistically, but they said he wasn't. Like if you looked at PFF and things like that, he wasn't even that good.
Right.
I'm not sure about him. I wouldn't say he's a bust, but I wouldn't say he's great either.
Yeah.
I think he's just a mediocre pass rusher at this point.
Okay. Yeah, and he's going to cost what? Probably $25 million a year to hold on to. Yeah, I don't know if he's worth that kind of money, honestly. And I think where the team's at now currently, I don't think I think based on the need and where the team's at, the only guy worth extend. Well, he's already extended now, but is Lawrence. That's Lawrence.
Yeah.
Because he's a game changing guy, that's worth that kind of money at this stage right now. And even though he may timeline or not, he still fits timeline enough. I think Thibodeau having that contract potentially on the books, that you can find for what he's been doing for the team the last couple of years, you can find that in a draft for cheap.
Yeah.
You really can.
Yeah, I think he's replaceable.
Yeah,
I think he's replaceable because he hasn't. He had the one good year, and he hasn't really been outstanding outside of that.
Yeah. All right. So so quarterback. If you had to pick right now, free agent quarterback, did you go Russ or you go Rodgers?
Probably Russ. Probably Russ. I don't. The Rodgers thing, like he's become so much of a diva in the later half of his career, and not only that, but like it's like the whole LeBron thing where it's like he says he's not the GM and he's not calling the shots, but everybody knows he is. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody knows Rodgers is behind a lot of the moves that they made last year, that the Jets made last year.
Of course, and I tell you what, it's a lot of balls, not balls, I guess, really, but the fact that the new brass there, Aaron Glenn, the new head coach there, and they just said, nah, we're good. Because I think one of the things that they said to Rodgers, which came out after the release, is that he was not allowed to go on Pat McAfee's show anymore. And
yeah.
He was having that. He was like, well, then you can get the fuck out. Then be good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take the dead money on. That's how bad things got. Like for them to even take on that much dead money for a guy that's still relatively a decent quarterback. Yes, he's not the same guy he was like even 2-3 years ago, but he's still probably a top 16 quarterback in the league at least. For them to say, you know what, we'll take the dead money because you're just a distraction and I don't want to say we're cancer, but this is just a negative presence in the locker room for young guys. That's a bad look. I still think retirement's on the table though, but
I don't know how they let it get there in the first place. Like I still don't understand why they fired Saleh.
A lot of people saying that same shit too.
Like to me, he's not a bad coach. Obviously, he's a better defensive coordinator, but the defense was playing well.
Yeah,
when he was there, and then all of a sudden he gets fired, they go to shit. Like,
their record was better with Zach Wilson than with Aaron Rodgers.
yeah.
But it was a worse team.
Yeah, I don't understand why they let. And we don't know how much Rodgers had to do with everything that went on there, but I don't understand why they let it happen in the first place.
No. You know the reason why. They're the fucking Jets, dude. Come on.
Yeah,
they're Jets for a reason. They're probably one of the worst run organizations, not in just football, but also in sports.
Yeah.
So it comes with the territory. It comes with the territory. So yeah, I think the Giants are going to probably go Wilson, and I think they'll draft the best available. They'll go quarterback first if available, and I think if both quarterbacks aren't there by 3, they'll probably go Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter.
Yeah, if both quarterbacks aren't there, then I would go Travis Hunter. Because we need a corner anyway.
If you had a choice between Cam and Shedeur, who would you go with?
See, I didn't really pay attention that much to them last year.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I heard and from the highlights I've seen, it looks like maybe Cam is a little bit better as a passer, but I'm not sure. I didn't really pay too much. Last year was like the first year I didn't pay that much attention to college football like that.
Well, we're both Florida State fans. We don't need to.
Yeah.
That was a disaster last year. No, so it's
Yeah.
funny. So it's funny because, like, and I think I told you this during the year. When we started the year, I was saying, okay, Shador, whatever. And by the end of the year, I was saying maybe I want Cam instead, because as a pure passer of the football, Cam looked like to me more polished. And that's not a knock on Shador. Shador is really good. I'm not saying Shador's not, but Cam looked really polished in a way where you know who he reminds me of. I think I told some people this and they didn't get it, but he reminds me of Tony Romo, like the way he throws football. And Romo had, say what I'm Tony Romo. Tony Romo was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in history of football. And Cam Ward also had to carry a Miami team that had one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in college football history. Okay, and they still won 10 games last year. Which means he had more alone in his back. That's why I kind of leaned to the Cam thing, and also I think the Giants front office, I don't think they want all the hoopla stuff which Shador comes with, which doesn't bother me, of course. But the Giants, John Mara and company, they're a lot more conservative and they want things done a certain way and very, very, just very set in their ways, if you will. Which that's another debate that we have on the road, But I think if they had the choice between the two guys, they'd probably go Cam Ward. But again, I still think Cam's going to Tennessee. So that's what I think is going to happen. But I'm still leaning Cam, but I will definitely take Shador if he's available at 3. Definitely take that. So
but who knows what they're going to do?
Nobody knows what Cleveland or Tennessee?
No, the Giants.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started on that shit. Trust me.
Because the whole thing is still there about us not drafting black quarterbacks.
Yeah, we literally did a 7 on this podcast back in November with my man Danny Blanco, and he's a New Yorker, and he said, yeah, that's the thing. I go, yeah, it really is. It really is. One more thing we get you out of here. I got 5 minutes. I got to call the doctor. Your Yankees. Are you excited about this year? The Yankees, even not doing Soto.
The team, like, I feel like they're gonna do well because they have a good roster, but it isn't well constructed. Mm-hmm. Like you saw that in the World Series last year. We're not that good defensively. We're not that good. On top of that, they still, like, all these years, I still feel like they need to have more than just one ace. They have one ace and that's it. I think they need, like, 2 guys to carry the load, maybe even 3, because you saw that against the Dodgers. Like, they basically just out-hit us the entire time, and their pitching was well enough, not great, but it was good enough to hold our bats down. So
that's not unfair though to compare to the Dodgers. The Dodgers team right now, and even more
right now they're a cheat code.
They're an anomaly, man. You're not ever again going to see a team like the Dodgers the way they have right now at the right timeline of the stars. They have arguably 3 to 5 best players in baseball on the same team, arguably. And
there's no way that contract should be allowed. That contract is stupid as hell.
With Shohei's contract?
Yeah,
that's the structure, right? The structure?
Yeah, that's unfair to the rest of the league. Like,
it is,
they have an all-star team right now, and they just signed that one
Snell.
Blake Snell. What's his name? Yeah.
No, they have they're gonna win. They're gonna win all this year again. My question is more so with the Yankees. Are they good enough to get back to the World Series? My answer is yes. I mean, the AL is fairly open.
The AL, it's not that strong, like it used to be in years past.
Right, and I thought the Yankees did pretty good actually, all considering everything that happened with them losing Soto and whatnot. I thought the moves they made,
they were decent,
shorter contracts, value guys who want to play. They're not locked in for more than 2 years. They can compete. I think they're gonna be fine. I think they're gonna win the East again this year, and I think they're probably gonna win American League. I don't see other team in the American League that's probably you have the Tampas and Boston will be better this year, and obviously Cleveland's always good and whatnot. Texas will be better this year, I'm sure. But I just think the Yankees are. Not to sound like like as easy as peasy here, but the Yankees to me seem like the easiest pick to win the American League. I think the likelihood of getting a rematch this year is very likely.
Yeah, barring that everybody stays healthy, because
Of
remember
course.
we do have guys that our big stars do get hurt. So
Yeah.
as you can
So
see already right now, what's his name? Stanton isn't on pace to start the season.
he's not. Oh Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it's
Well,
already starting with the injury
well,
thing.
it doesn't bother me. I'm a Met fan, so I hope you guys lose. No, I'm joking. I mean, look, you're the
But
reason why I hate the Yankees, though. So whatever. You're the reason why.
but
You know
yeah,
that, right?
literally baseball right now is like the NBA when Durant went to Golden State, pretty much.
It is, but you know what's funny though? Unlike with basketball, when actually it was bad for the game, I don't think that's necessarily bad for baseball in the short term because they need a spark of interest outside of just the regional stuff. I think the Dodgers. I mean, the World Series numbers last year rings were through the roof because of Yankees and Dodgers. Now
Yeah,
there will be
and I've
some
been
winner
waiting for that. I was waiting for this World Series. Like I thought it should have happened when we got cheated by Houston.
in 2017.
I've been waiting for this World Series for like almost a decade,
Right.
and then it
So
just
yes, so
we didn't play well.
I don't think it's a bad thing that we have that for the time being, but I do think once they do get more new eyeballs into the fold, then you want parity again. Because I think ultimately
Yeah,
parity is good for sports. Football thrives because of parity. The NBA, for all the rating issues they've had this year, parity is massive in the NBA for the last 5 years now. So and of course hockey is always parity. So I think parity is a good thing. Ultimately, people want to see competition. I think baseball eventually will go back to parity once they break apart this Dodgers team down the road and whatnot. But they need
they need to fix that.
but they can they
That
can
needs
use
to be negotiated. No more contracts like that.
well that's a Rob Manfred problem. So anyway,
When is the bargaining agreement coming up again?
I have no clue. They signed you one like a year or two ago.
Oh,
so you got a long way to go. If I had to guess, probably 2028, 2029. These teams don't go no more than 5-6 years normally. So
yeah,
I'm thinking end of the decade. So we'll see. But anyway,
how
good
long
job,
you
man.
think the Dodgers
Huh?
is going to be good for? How long you think the Dodgers is going to be like are as they are right now?
So Freddie Freeman's how old?
I'm not sure.
34. Look at it right now.
Yeah, he's
Freddie
getting up
Freeman.
there.
Yeah, he's still about 34 years old, I think, right now. He's still fairly young, though. I thought he was a lot older than when I actually saw. Freddie Freeman right now is I can't see that. What the hell? Yeah, he's 36.
Yeah,
Dude, he's older. He's 36.
but everybody else is fairly young. Sohei's young.
Shohei's young. Mookie Betts is, I think, in his early 30s, maybe late 20s.
Yeah,
Mookie Betts is he's 32. All right, fuck it. 3
that's
years.
still good in baseball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Okay, I'm giving it 3 to 4 years tops.
And then if that so-called phenom that they got from overseas, if he,
Pitcher?
yeah,
Shit ain't fair, bro. Shit ain't fair. But
like I wanted the Yankees to get him real bad.
You're mad about this stuff, but here's the thing: like I have to deal with this crap on the National League side as a Met fan because we can't get to the damn World Series unless they're there. We're praying for the Padres. Those ones to take them on the knees.
Yeah,
bastards.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for going to the podcast.
Cold.
Appreciate it. I gotta call a doctor now.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon. Again, I'm on Twitter at EJ7. Again, guys, once again, check out the new YouTube page at Earnestly Pod and the new Earnestly Podcast YouTube page. Subscribe, please. Check out all the clips, everything else there, all the stuff we're doing there. The retro pods. We're gonna have a new basketball retro pod very soon coming up. Guys, check it out very soon, and we'll talk to you guys later.